Hip-hop has always been a competitive art form, and long before streaming numbers, chart placement or social media engagement became the currency of success. Reputation was everything. Rappers battled not just for bragging rights, but for survival, status and control of narrative, and the sharper the pen, the higher the respect. Insults, exaggerations, character attack were never side effects of rap culture. They were the fundamental element of it. To understand how the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef or conflict escalated into one of the most controversial moments in modern hip-hop, and why it triggered serious discussion about lawsuits and defamation. You have to understand that this wasn't a random explosion. It was the result of more than a decade of tension, shifting power, and unresolved rivalry that slowly transformed from competitive energy into something far more personal. Drake and Kendrick Lamar came up in the same era, but through completely different paths, and that's the major reason why the beef resonated. Drake emerged as a once-in-a-generation commercial force, a rapper who blurred the lines between hip-hop, R&B, and vulnerability, dominating charts and shaping the sound of the 2010s. Kendrick Lamar, on the other hand, became the symbol of lyrical purity, conceptual depth, and artistic credibility, crafting dense, social-conscious albums that were dissected like literature and celebrated by critics as cultural landmarks. For a brief moment early in their careers, these two men overlapped peacefully. Kendrick toured with Drake, collaborated, and publicly showed respect, and at the time, there was no visible reason to believe they would become rivalries. But hip-hop history shows that rivalries don't always begin with hatred. They often begin with ambition, and that ambition exploded into the open in 2013 when Kendrick delivered his now legendary verse on Big Scene's Control. That verse did not insult Drake personally, but it did challenge the entire hierarchy of rap, and by name-dropping Drake while declaring dominance, he dropped Drake out of the list. Kendrick forced the comparison that neither artist could ever escape. Drake responded, but not with an immediate distract, but with interviews and subliminal bars.
He's giving people like moments, you know, like that verse was a moment to talk about. Are you listening to it now at this point in time? Okay. And then, but it was real cool for like, you know, a couple weeks.
And those bars communicated disappointment, irritation, and finally rivalry. From that moment, the relationship turned into a cold war where every award, every album, and every critical discussion became part of a larger unspoken competition. For years, fans debated who was really the greatest rapper of their generation, with Drake representing unmatched popularity and Kendrick representing unmatched prestige. And that debate alone kept the tension alive, even when neither eyes directly addressed it. What made the rivalry especially volatile is that both eyes occupy positions of extreme power. Drake was arguably the most commercial dominant rapper alive, while Kendrick was arguably the most respected artistically. Neither man needed the other to survive, which meant neither man had anything to lose by pushing harder. As the years passed, subliminal shots accumulated. The hip-hop audience became conditioned to listen for hidden meanings, coded phrases, and indirect references. This created an environment where fans felt like detectives, reading between lines, amplifying interpretations, and sometimes projecting intent beyond what was explicitly stated. The environment set the stage for what happened in 2024, when long-standing tension finally boiled into direct confrontation. A series of releases, responses, and escalating lyrical exchanges turned what had been a slow burn into an outright lyrical war. And when Kendrick Lamar released Not Like Us, the temperature of the entire culture changed. The song was not subtle and not designed to be misinterpreted as friendly competition. It was a diss record in the purest sense, aggressive, confrontational, and meant to change the atmosphere. However, one particular line overshadowed everything else in the track, not because it was the cleverest line, but because of what listeners believe it implied. The lyric referenced Drake in a way that many interpreted as an accusation, tied to one of the most serious and socially stigmatized crimes imaginable. And whether that interpretation was intended, exaggerated, or metaphorical, it landed with explosive force. The internet reacted instantly. Clips went viral. Clouds repeated the lyrics at events. But as you watch this video, kindly subscribe to Crisis Trends and be part of this community. I create videos like this every week. Social media timelines filled with debates, and mainstream outlets began covering the beef, not just as an entertainment, but as a potential legal issue. This is where narrative shifted from hip-hop rivalry into courtroom issue, because accusations of criminal behavior, even when delivered through music, carry a different weight than calling someone fake, soft, or untalented. In legal terms, such statements raise questions about defamation, which is the art of making a false statement presented as facts which harms a person's reputation. The key phrase there is presented as fact because the law does not punish insults, opinions, or artistic exaggeration in the same way it punishes false factual claims. As reports circulated that Drake was at least considering legal options or taking the situation seriously behind the scenes, many people online began repeating the claim that court had ruled rap lyrics can't be sued. But that phrase, while catchy, is misleading. Courts have not given rap a special immunity, and they have not declared that lyrics are above the law. What courts have consistently done is analyze context, intent, and how a reasonable audience would interpret the statement being made. In cases involving music, poetry, or performing arts, judges ask whether the context is clearly fictionalized, exaggerated, or part of an artistic tradition where hyperbole is expected. Rap diss tracks fall squarely into that category. For decades, battle rap have thrived on extreme language, metaphorical violence, and over-the-top claims, and audiences understand that these lyrics are not sworn testimony. They are performance that understanding play a massive role in why defamation lawsuits over rap lyrics always fail, especially when the person being targeted is a public figure like Drake. Public figures face a much higher legal standards when bringing defamation claims because they must prove actual malice, meaning they must prove that the speaker made a false statement or acted with reckless disregard for the truth in the context of diss track. All exaggeration is expected, and the goal is to provoke, intimidate, or outperform an opponent lyrically. Proving actual malice becomes incredibly difficult. Courts look at whether the average listener reasonably believes that the lyric is making a literal claim about real-world conduct, or whether they will understand it as part of a rhetorical battle. In most cases, the answer favors artistic expression, which is protected under the First Amendment. That protection does not mean the lyrics are harmless, and it does not mean they have no consequences. It simply means that the legal system is reluctant to police art, unless there is clear evidence of intentional falsehood presented as fact. This distinction is crucial because while the law may protect the eyes, the culture still reacts emotionally, socially. Even if a lyric is legally protected, it can still damage reputation, influence public perception, and flow an eyes indefinitely in the age of viral content. That's why the Drake and Kendrick situation sparked such intense debate. For some fans, Kendrick's lyric was simply battle rap taken to a logical extreme, a verbal nuke designed to end the conversation decisively. For others, it felt like crossing a line that hip-hop traditionally skirts, but rarely touches directly, especially when the accusation carries real-world stigma beyond music. The divide exposed a larger cultural question about where the boundary of this record should be, not legally, but ethically and socially. Kendrick Lamar supporters argue that his work have always used provocation and discomfort to challenge others. He used it to challenge power structures, hypocrisy, and moral contradictions. And that, not like us, should be understood through that lens as an exaggerated cultural attack. Rather than a factual claim, they point to Kendrick's history of storytelling, symbolism, and extreme language as evidence that the lyric was never meant to be interpreted literally from that perspective. The outrage misunderstands both the eyes and the genre. Drake, on the other hand, Drake's position, whether or not it's involved in a lawsuit, highlights how modern celebrity operates in the environment, where perception directly impacts business, brand partnership, and public trust. In a world where a single viral clip can define someone's image overnight. Let me end it here because Drake and Kendrick lawsuits is a long story. Can you subscribe to Classy Trends and be part of this community? I create content like this every week.